My mother was a closet racist and stole the pregnancy test results meant for my sister, that I paid for, because she didn't like that the baby's daddy was Hispanic. Now, as you know from the last story, my mother tried to act like she's in charge of my life and also acted like my house was hers to give away. Well, that ended very badly for both her and my spoiled sister because I threatened to expose them, and that whole incident inspired me to get cameras for my house, both inside and out. My dad was old school. He didn't care for cameras at home, hell, he didn't even care for TV, save for the occasional movie. He mostly enjoyed his scotch with a cigarette and a good book. But now I own his house, and the cameras were a very needed upgrade. And just in case, my girlfriend and I didn't tell anybody outside of our close friend circles about them, and those that do know were sworn to secrecy and kept their word. A couple of weeks had gone by without any word from my sister or my mother, other than what I was seeing on my sister's social media. She was constantly complaining about having to live in our mother's basement, and I'm pretty sure she was making my mother miserable for it. But what came next surprised me. I got a frantic call from my sister saying that her boyfriend was questioning whether or not he was the father of her pregnancy, and he was threatening to leave without a paternity test. My sister swore up and down to me that she'd always been faithful to him. I admit I believed there was a chance she could be lying because her mother's own past affair made our father question our paternity as well. So I suggested they get the DNA test, but my sister just babbled about how they don't have a lot of money. I offered to pay for it so long as she didn't come to me asking for money or favors often. She quickly agreed. I arranged for the test and even shelled out extra to make sure we get the test results ASAP, but it still said it would take a few days. I hadn't met my sister's boyfriend yet, but when I did, I started to understand a bit more. He's half Hispanic, and my mother, though not open about it, is quite the closet racist, something she got from my grandparents. Sadly, I decided to try and talk to the guy and took him out for a drink. While at the pub, he spilled his guts to me. He said that my mother had been whispering in his ear about how my sister is just like her and she's cheated before, so my sister might have as well. This made him have doubts that grew every day, and he said he wasn't sure my sister didn't cheat or get pregnant on purpose to try and baby trap him so she won't have to work any more than she already does with her little part-time online sales job. Sadly, I knew he was probably right about the latter. But other than that, he's described her as a completely different person when she's not around her mother. But ever since they've been living in my mom's basement, she's become more and more like a child. After what I saw in my house, I wholeheartedly believed him. So I asked if he suggested she get therapy. He admitted that he's wanted to but didn't have the money and had been walking on eggshells around her and our mother for a while, so we never talked about it. Well, I guess that made some brotherly instincts I didn't know I still had kick in because I started to realize if I was going to have a niece or a nephew, I couldn't let them live with or be raised by my mother. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I told him that if the DNA results came back positive, I'd offer him a job in training at the company that I now own. He very quickly agreed because he doesn't want to live with my mother any more than he has to. Well, the day of the DNA test results coming in the mail came pretty fast. But my sister called me, saying they weren't in the mail, she'd gone that day. I asked who got the mail from the P.O. box, and she answered it was our mother. That pretty much confirmed my theory that she was trying to force out my sister's boyfriend. But since I don't and never really have trust in my mother, with my sister's consent, I preemptively got the clinic to send a copy of the DNA results to my address as well, and they did come in the mail the same day. I called my mother and asked if she'd taken the DNA test results. The following conversation is more or less what I recall since it wasn't recorded. Hello, Mom. I heard that sister's DNA test didn't come in the mail today. Mother, oh, yes, but it could be here soon. Did you take it? I know it arrived today, as I paid to have it set up as priority mail. What? How dare you accuse me of such a thing? I would never. Okay, then. I guess I'll bring over the backup copy that was sent to me. Backup copy? Yeah, I had one sent to me as well the same day since I paid for it. Sister gave her okay and everything. I guess I'll just call her, and we'll meet up. Wait, that's not necessary. Click. I hung up the phone and called my sister right away. I picked up my sister and her boyfriend from my mother's house and drove them to a local diner restaurant, and there we opened the envelope together. Sure enough, the test results were positive. My sister's boyfriend was so happy that he actually asked her if she'd want to marry him, and she said yes like a half-dozen times. The little vindictive part of me was just waiting to see my mother's face when she got the news. But what happened next honestly shocked me. When I took my sister back home, her and her boyfriend's stuff was in the process of being put out onto the lawn by a few men that we didn't recognize. My sister froze with the look on her face that I've never seen before. Our mother came huffing outside in a rage while holding the DNA test results she claimed never arrived and then verbally began tearing into my sister. How could you make a baby with that? Insert Hispanic racial slur here. I thought you were dating, another racial slur. Now you're gonna have a baby with him and marry him. I would have been sort of okay with this little spawn around if you weren't raising it in my home, and this, insert Hispanic racial slur here, wasn't around anymore. She said all this while pointing at my sister's boyfriend. But, Mummy, No, bitch young lady. I demand that you abort that little hell spawn from your belly right now. Leave my house at once. Then she turned to me while snapping her fingers and said, and you, I hope you're proud of yourself. I tried to make this family normal, but you wouldn't do as I said like a good son should, and now all my plans are ruined. You're all a bunch of, insert other racial slur here. Meanwhile, my sister was on her knees in the grass holding her belly, crying. I can't. My mother then actually grabbed my sister's hair and was poised, ready to take a swing at her. But one good glare from me, and she froze in place and then rigidly lowered her arm. So she just let out a loud growl and stormed back into her house, screaming, "She's your problem now. OP, I know we're gonna have a child." That night, I put my sister and her boyfriend up in a hotel till the friend of my lawyer that works in real estate helped arrange an apartment for them ASAP. And like I promised, I gave my sister's boyfriend a job. He's new and pretty much starting at the bottom rung, but he's a quick learner. It'll take a while, but I'll get him in a good position, and he's very happy to work for me. My sister is now in therapy, paid for by my company's insurance, and has already started to act more mature than I've ever seen her. She stopped referring to our mother as Mummy, and even started talking about her the way that I do. She's come to me recently and she said she's working harder now and told me I was right about being a spoiled mooch and that she's gonna work hard to be a good mother and provider for her child. Her therapist seems to be doing a really great job. As for my mother, well, she actually drove up to my house in broad daylight when no one was home and broke several of my front windows with large rocks she had in metal buckets. The rocks had slurs written all over them, but thanks to those cameras I put in, she was caught pretty easily. I had the footage in police hands that same day. I didn't bother to ask for repayment for the damages, the windows were old anyway, and it just gave me an excuse to remodel. But I pressed charges and even got a restraining order. She's not allowed within 500 feet of me or my property. She also took quite the downfall online, as I had a dash cam in my car that picked up everything my mother said and did that evening when she kicked my sister out, and this time I did show it to the rest of the family. My sister also pretty much told the same story on her Facebook, which destroyed my mother's remaining image to her side of the family, so she's not really speaking much to any of them anymore. My mother didn't lose her job or anything because I didn't go that far. She's not set to retire for another decade or so, but some of her more petty relatives started submitting fake bad reviews for her Airbnb, and now she's probably losing customers. I've heard from one of the few relatives she's still talking to that she's pretty depressed and looks like a shell of her former self now. Was I the fool in this entire situation?